they are. We don't know what they're telling our kids. And these are the things that are happening right in front of us. Can we even recognize it and acknowledge it? Okay, social media. Social media has a lot of great uses. Social media can be very great. However, it can be very detrimental. And some of the kids that come through my office, it has been a bit detrimental. Okay? This is where, again, they are establishing their standards. Standards of beauty, standards of what success looks like. This is where they are learning a lot of things, right? And so if we are not, as parents, as adults, creating opportunities for them to see something else, to believe in something else, this is where they're getting all of this stuff. Kids will sit on social media, Instagram, TikTok, all day long scrolling, picking themselves apart because they don't look the way that this person that just got 100,000 and something likes on their posts. And this is what they're comparing their lives to. And then we wonder why. Again, that low self-esteem, that lack of motivation, that depression starts to sink in. Because we're comparing ourselves to a standard that isn't really even, I'm going to leave that alone. And again, these things are happening right inside of our homes. When we send our kids out to school, we think, oh, they come back in one piece. But if you only knew some of the things that were happening just in middle school, there were things that are going on that even me, I'm not that old. Okay? Barely about to hit 30 this year. That I did not have this issue. We have kids literally on substances, vaping in the restrooms. These are their peers. These are their friends that they're hanging out with, saying, hey, just try this once. We already know that fentanyl has been attacking our youth so much. And sometimes we just think, oh, okay, it's just marijuana, it's just a vape pen. And then some of these things, they get laced with something, and then our kids are overdosing. And these are things that they're being exposed to even at school. And this is why I say, and I'm pretty sure last time I was here, I expressed the importance of getting to know who your kids are friends with. Okay. Go back? Okay.
What you're saying is so important, and the parents and the young people need. So not over everything, but just kind of go back.
Okay. Did they say where it cut off?
Yeah. All right, y'all get back on my table.
Did we know where it cut off at? What part I was at?
About 10 minutes ago.
Ooh, Jesus. Okay. Okay. Okay, so let me figure out where I'll go back. No worries. Sorry, I'm not keeping time up here. So I guess I'll just go back. Maybe that's where we were kind of talking about video games and social media and things of that nature. So basically what I was talking about was just how, in our homes, we are literally, our kids are getting exposed and creating addictions to things. And one of those things that we talked about was the video games. And so it's so important that we not just try to send our kids to their rooms and isolate them in all these different ways, because they are still building connections even through these video games, right? And some of these video games, to be quite honest, they're not things that kids should really be on. Okay, some of these games are teaching them how to join gangs, how to rob people, how to shoot people. Are we good before? Okay, we good? Okay. Teaching them how to shoot people, hold up stores, and all of those things. And to be honest with you, when I was working in the juvenile facility, I seen a lot of kids that were holding up stores. If you, Grand Theft Auto, I think that's what it is, teaching them how to steal vehicles. And I'm not saying they're like literally teaching them this is what you do, but these are the things that they're influenced by. These are the things where those happy hormones, that dopamine, when they're doing these things on these games, that dopamine is being released into their bodies and it's exciting them, right? And so what do? They try to keep getting that rush. That's what addiction does, right? I want to keep getting that rush. And when the games no longer do it for us, how do I bring this into real life? Okay? So recognizing, how are your kids responding when you turn off the game, when you take those things away? Are they having full-blown fits? Giving up enjoyment, right? When they used to go out and play basketball or hang out with their friends, they don't want to do that anymore because they want to just play their video games. That's a problem. And it's creating social withdrawal. And as I had mentioned, they are now establishing relationships through these video games. And we don't know who these people are on the other side. There are kids that are literally talking to people in other countries. We don't know how old they are. We don't know their motives. We don't know what they're putting into our kids' head. We don't know any of those things. And if we're so quick because we're so tired and worn out from our day to get rid of our kids and shove them in our room just so we can have a moment of quietness, this is where these things are happening. Social media. Again, as I was saying, our kids are literally comparing themselves to lifestyles and individuals, and it's killing them. It's killing their self-esteem. It's killing their confidence. It's killing who they look up to. Their influences. And it's really scary because some of the things that are out there, and it's like these are the things that they're looking up to. These are the lifestyles that they're looking up to, wanting to be these artists. And there's nothing wrong with that. If God grants you that gift, that's amazing. However, these are the things that they are only reaching so high in what they are capable of doing. And so if we are not making sure that we're speaking that life into our kids, if we're not instilling and helping them to see their value, see their worth outside of what they're seeing on social media, if your kids are on their phones constantly 24/7, that's a problem. Kids are literally becoming a whole new person on social media versus who they are in person. And I hear it so often that I'm a whole different person. On social media, I'm so confident. I get to literally become and be whoever I want to be on social media. But in person, I have failed relationships. I can't keep friends. I'm not confident in myself. And so once they start, again, getting this feedback, even on social media, again, they get a certain amount of likes. Oh my gosh, did you see how many likes I got? Like, it's cute for a moment, but what are they willing to do to keep getting those likes? That's when they start taking off more clothes and doing things that they probably shouldn't be doing so they can keep getting that rush that I keep talking about. Okay? And there are so many people, so many predators on social media. And this is, again, not to scare or say take away these things because they're going to use it anyways. But how do we develop that sense of building our kids so they don't have to look for social media for validation? If they're getting validation from inside their home, inside their churches, inside schools, then they won't look to all of these different avenues for those things. Okay, so social media, just being very aware of what's going on. Okay, and that even again draws in some of that isolation. When I want to be on my phone so much, when I'm locked up in my room and I'm just scrolling all day, what is being put into them? What you give your energy to is what will continue to grow. And if I'm giving all of my time, my energy, my space into being this person on social media or filling my head up with what's going on social media, that's what's going to grow in us. Okay? Then we started talking about how they're going to school and being exposed to things, right? So we think that we have our homes all together, and it's great. Listen, our homes are, if you're that parent that has a perfect home and you got it all together and you talk to your kids and you're open with them, and that is so amazing. But then what happens when they go out into the world and the things that they're being exposed to at school? Okay, we started talking about how nowadays, just literally in middle school alone, kids are being subjected to substance use. They're vaping in the bathrooms, right? They're smoking in the bathrooms. They're passing out pills along campus. And nowadays, let's be real, they're bringing guns to school. And you mean to tell me that our kids are not dealing with anything when they see on national news or television that a school just got shot up, and how likely could that have been? I have gotten things from my daughter's school about threats. And you mean to tell me that doesn't create a sense of anxiety and fear for these kids, and then we want them to just be successful at school? People that they're having issues with, being bullied, because bullying still happens. And sometimes it starts on that social media. Again, check that social media. But those things still happen. We talked about how these drugs nowadays being laced with stuff. Kids think they're getting just a one-time deal. And all it takes is that one time for them to overdose and never return or come back. All it takes is that one time to go to that party and something terrible happens. And this is not me trying to scare parents or kids or anything like that, but this is why it's so important that we really make sure that we are teaching our kids how to be confident in their decision making so they don't have to give in to the peer pressure. If we set and build that foundation, not to say that they won't make mistakes either, right? Because we think that our kids are supposed to be perfect. And can we remind ourselves of what we were like back then, what we were dealing with? And if we shoot them down every time that they make a mistake, they will be so fearful to come to you and say, you know what, I made a mistake. But guess what? Making mistakes is a part of how they grow, how they learn. Some of the greatest lessons that we learn in life is some of those mistakes. And sometimes, and it's not a bad thing, and again, you keep hearing me drop these, it's not always a bad thing, but sometimes we try to shield and protect our kids so much that when real life hits, they don't even know how to deal with it. There was somebody that I had spoke to, and they said the worst mistake that their parent made was trying to protect them so much that when it came down to trying to master challenges, and they didn't know how to. They weren't taught the fundamental skills of how to deal with problems because they were so shielded. And we think that we're doing our kids a great service by protecting them, and these are my babies, and I don't want them to grow up, and that's great. But what happens when we have to actually teach them how to master problems? Life comes with problems. And we have to be willing to teach our kids those things. And even if they did make a mistake, listen, I'm going to love you through those mistakes. Yeah, there might be some consequences, but I'm going to still love you through those mistakes. And we shame our kids so much sometimes. And then we wonder why they don't come to us about anything. How are we treating them when these things do come up? When they do give into a peer pressure? Why are we no longer having these real and honest conversations? We can't just tell our kids, don't do this anymore. Our kids have questions. And if they're not asking us, if we're not able to talk about these things in the church, guess where they're going to go? They're going to go to their friends. They're going to go to their friends' parents. And guess what? We don't always know their teaching and their upbringing. And brings me back to the point where we ended of why it is so important that you get to know your kids' friends. You don't know the things that they're being exposed to. And I think we talked about this last time I was here, that sometimes we think, listen, that we have it all together, but they're learning things from their friends. There have been literally, and I'm telling you these things because I seen it and I literally I've witnessed it for some people. There were friends making pacts. Pacts are like agreements. We're in this thing together, making pacts to hurt themselves, to kill themselves. Teenagers. And you're like, my kid was never that. They never had these issues. Yeah, but they got connected to somebody that did. All of a sudden, their best friend who's struggling with suicidal thoughts or self-harming behaviors and all these things, the abuse that's going on in their home. And you think it's weird, but again, sometimes when kids, especially when kids that don't have like enough attention from their homes, and they see that their friends, even though their life is not great and they're being exposed to all these things, they start creating these same lies. Just because they want a sense of belonging. And you're like, their life is so great. Why would they even want to say something like that? Because they see what their friend is getting out of it. To be accepted, to be liked, to have somebody to have some empathy for them. And that's sad when we have to create false narratives just to get empathy or attention. And whether you think it's a bad way of getting attention, guess what? If they're not getting it at all, they're going to create, it's going to go either way. It's also important to not ignore the signs of dating violence in teens. It is so unfortunate. And this is where, again, a lot of these rules, I get the rules, right? I'm not here to tell any parent to change their rules. But if we create so many rules, truth be told, our kids are going to do what they want to do. There are 6 hours out of that day that they are not being supervised by you. So you can tell your kids all day you're not dating until you're 18. And I promise and I guarantee you, they're going to find a little boyfriend or girlfriend somewhere. And if we're so closed off to these conversations, they're just going to go behind our backs and still do. Not that it's right. But again, remember who you were when you were a teenager and a child. Okay? And so we got to be realistic about their development. We have to be so realistic. We are so scared to have these conversations. And I think I'm home. I love y'all. We family, so we can say it. We're too afraid to have conversations about sex. We're too afraid to have conversations about masturbation. Forgive me. These things are happening. And then we wonder why our kids are developing addictions to even insert. You guys know what I'm talking about. Because they're curious. And we have to be able to go with their development. It's not uncommon that they start having feelings or having attractions. What were you doing? It's unrealistic. And so we're creating unrealistic expectations, and then we wonder why our kids are failing. And then they start feeling bad about themselves, and they start feeling like something's wrong with them because we're creating unrealistic expectations. Okay? So we have to be open. Okay? And I know you all are probably like, how is this tying into mental health? I promise this is all about mental health. Our kids, their peers become so important to them at a certain age. And when they don't have that acceptance, when they don't have that sense of being, it really creates a lot of mental health issues, whether that be anxiety from being in social settings, whether that be depression, whether that be just a lot of different things, okay? Okay. So, again, my big thing that I really like to do is just, bring out the statistics so you all don't think that I'm just making this stuff up. And I talked about like statistics overall, but I really wanted to hone in on what the statistics of Arizona was, okay? So there is 87,000 Arizonians ages 12 through 17 who have depression, okay? High school students with depression are more than 2 times more likely to drop out of school than their peers, okay? 57.8% of Arizonians ages 12 through 17 who have depression did not receive any care within the last year. In Arizona, 1,438 lives, this is suspected, lives were lost to suicide. 7 in 10 youth in the juvenile justice system have a mental health condition. I just want you to sit with some of that. 7 in 10 youth in the juvenile justice system have a mental health condition. More than half of teenagers, kids that were dealing with just depression did not receive any care. We have to stop being afraid of allowing our kids to receive help. And the sad reality is that some parents don't really get help for their kids because they're part of the problem. Because if they walk into the office and if that kid says too much, they know somebody might be knocking on their door. And that's a sad reality. That we make our kids suffer in silence and then expect them to excel and be great and be happy with their lives. And they're going through some of the most important stages of development during these ages. And sometimes we as parents, we get offended when our kids don't want to talk to us. You're not always going to be the answer, and that's okay. But can we allow them the opportunity to talk to someone? Because it's not always going to be you. And I'd much rather them have somebody that they can talk to on a professional level or somebody that has some soundness of mind than them going to their peers and social media looking for answers and a cry for help. We can't be afraid to have these conversations anymore and to recognize that our kids are exposed to things constantly and on a daily basis. One thing that really bothers me, and I've seen it, but it really bothers me when adults feel as if because they had it worse, that idea that you didn't have to go through the things that I went through. Why would you want them to? Why do you want them to have the same struggle? And just because their struggle may not seem as difficult as yours does not mean that it does not have the same impact. Think about that. Some of the things that we are teaching our kids, That idea of what goes on in this house stays in this house. And then we wonder why generational trauma keeps getting passed down. And we wonder why Uncle so-and-so continues to keep molesting people. And abuse continues to happen. And just because you're not beating and hitting on your kids doesn't mean that your words don't hurt either. You can't call your kids stupid and ugly and all these things and then expect them to show up as their best selves. So even how you deal with them in anger, they're just now learning. Why do you expect your kids to know how to deal with certain things when they're just now learning? These are new situations that they're dealing with. These are new things that they don't know how to deal with. And then we want to call them lazy when they don't want to get up for school. But they're over here struggling with depression, and it just took them so much to get out of bed. So being able to recognize some of these signs, okay? Depression doesn't always look like laziness. If your kid doesn't like to shower, if they're not even brushing their teeth, if they don't even care about their appearance, that's a sign. Some people think like, oh, they just don't care. No, sometimes that's a sign. Most kids genuinely do care about what they look like because they don't want to get talked about when they go to school. So when they stop caring about how they even look, when all of a sudden they had all these friends and now they don't want to talk to anybody. When's the last time you talked to so-and-so? Oh, I haven't really talked to them in like 3 weeks. What's going on with your friendships? Are we asking them the right questions? Eating disorders. Sorry, I'm breezing through some of this, and I'm going to go in depth next week. Eating disorders, right? Our kids, especially, and this kind of goes back to that social media about how our kids are holding themselves to a standard that sometimes don't even exist. These people getting BBLs all day, every day, and them making gym videos as if they just got it like that. And these are the people that they're inspired by. And because they don't look like that, even at a teenage year, when they don't look like that, they're developing eating disorders, starving themselves, making themselves throw up. Emotional eating, those that kiddos that are overweight, emotional eating, because that's how they learn how to cope. And can we be honest? I'm going to just put it out there. The apple doesn't always fall too far from the tree. I hate to say it like that, but sometimes our kids, the things that their behaviors, they're learned behaviors. I had a client when I say tore herself apart, picked herself piece by piece of everything she did not like about herself. And when we got to the root of that thing, guess what? She seen her mom do the same thing. So we, even as adults, have to check our behaviors and what we're exposing our kids to, because they're picking up on some of this stuff. And we can't sit here and tell our kids and hold our kids to a standard when you're not even holding yourself to a standard. That makes it really hard that makes it really hard. So we, even as adults, have to really check ourselves. Okay. Sorry, I'm checking the time. Okay, we got about 4 minutes. While we wait, my computer just froze up. Do we have any questions? I know there was some questions that were submitted beforehand, and if I can get my computer working again, I will address some of those questions. But do we have any questions, those that are in the room, those that are online right now? Yes. Hold on, baby girl. We're going to get you a mic.
Testing.
So, a lot of the kids at my school cuss, which is probably to be expected, but I don't want to become like a product of the environment that I'm in, but I don't know how to get around it. Like, I don't want to just like be accidentally cussing because like it's just around me, but like I don't know how to get around it. And it's not that I cuss, because I don't, but it's like it's just around me a lot, and it's like I don't know how to get out of the environment because it's in my classroom. So then when I go home, I'm not like, sometimes I'll, like when I'm thinking, I'll be like, oh, you know. So yeah, I don't know how to get around it, but yeah, that's my question.
No, I mean, and that's real, right? Because we're talking about how other people's upbringing, and trust me, some of them parents, if they knew their kids was cussing, they wouldn't be cussing. However, it's just important that you stay true to who you are. And I know that's not always easy to do when it's always sitting in front of your face and being around you, but you be the standard. If you're not afraid to do that, then you be the standard. And if you have some friends that are a part of some of those cussers, when you all are alone or when you guys are hanging out, it's okay to set boundaries with our friends, right? And so sometimes that's what we have to do. We have to tell people or our friends, like, hey, I don't like you cussing around me. And if they don't respect your boundary, then they don't really respect your friendship. And that's sometimes a hard reality, but we got to be able to set boundaries. You know, and I think it's so important. I love that you said that, because sometimes, yes, it does pop up in our mind, right? We might not say it out loud, but like, listen, if anybody in this room try to act like we have never said a cuss word, you'll be lying. You be lying. So we got to keep it real with our kids, okay? Keep it real with our kids. So if you ever like catch yourself, that's why I always tell people to give yourself grace. Because sometimes we are so hard on ourselves and we expect ourselves to be perfect. And listen, if you catch somebody in the right moment, even some of these saints, let's be real, you catch them on the right day at the right time, they might slip up and say something too. You know, so you just catch yourself, and again, just give yourself some grace. And you know, if it becomes too much or too bothersome, then you know, it's okay to have those conversations with your teachers as well. You know, sometimes we have to be able to advocate for ourselves, and a part of that advocacy is talking to the adults that have the ability to make some of those changes. Okay. Any other questions? Some good replacements for the internet. I would definitely say getting them involved in groups and clubs is very helpful. You know, if there's things at school, or if they they're into sports and things like that, they can't be you're really on their phone if they're involved in those activities. But also spending time with them, having family game nights, you know, and making that a rule. Like, while we're at the table, there's no phones. We created that rule in our house. No phones and tablets at the table, okay? If we're having family game night, again, those are opportunities, you know, to get them off of, you know, those devices, you know. So just engaging them in things that are of interest and important to them, that can really help fill that up. And again, being realistic, they're going to use it, but there's some like parental controls on that as well. Like, I know my daughter, she has a phone, but at 8 o'clock, that phone, it gets shut. You can't access the internet. So after a certain time, that access, it gets shut off, right? But by the time they're coming home, it's about 3, 4 o'clock. If they got homework, they should be doing their homework. They got dinner, they got whatever nighttime routine they got going on, you know, so that should fill up a lot of their time to where they're not just, you know, scrolling and doing those things. Any other questions? So there was a question that was submitted. I'll just do 2 questions, and then the other ones I will save. Sorry, all of my stuff like just shut down on me. That is so lovely. Alrighty, so one of the questions that was submitted, so this one says, what do you do when those around you don't understand how to deal with you being depressed and it sinks you deeper into it? And I think we kind of talked about this one. Just making sure that you do talk to somebody that does understand. And like I said, for parents, I know sometimes those conversations are hard, but it's important that you allow them the opportunity to talk to somebody, because the more that we let and allow our kids to sink in some of those depressions or those moments of depression and they don't have the coping mechanisms to actually deal with it, it can lead to more and bigger issues as well. And so I want to be very clear, especially when we start talking about depression. Most people think, oh, if you're depressed, you're suicidal, and that's not always the case. And you're not, and just because you're suicidal, that doesn't mean that you're depressed either. And so just being very clear, but again, if these things do go untreated for a long time, sometimes that can lead to those things, because if I can't cope with these symptoms of depression, that weighs on somebody. And again, most people are like, I don't want to continue to live life like that. If this is how I have to live life, feeling like this every day, then that can lead to some thoughts of maybe not wanting to be here anymore. So it's important that we create and make space and opportunity for our kids to get proper treatment and care. And so if you need some resources, which again, I'll have some next week, but if you do need some resources to make sure that your kids are allowed or have the opportunity to get that help and assistance, then I definitely don't mind assisting and leading those in the right direction to get some mental health treatment for that. So don't ever allow yourself to suffer in silence. I always talk about that self-advocacy. Even as a kid, you do have a voice, and so even if there's always school counselors, and so most schools should have a school counselor. They don't provide like ongoing counseling, but that is at least one avenue that you can say, you know what, I am struggling in this area. I do suffer from some of these symptoms of depression, and they also should be able to have resources to help you or to send you to somebody that could provide those services. So. And then I'll take one more question on here. This question said, what are some steps of getting out of depression? This was a little bit of a hard question, just because there are different factors that feed into depression, and so everyone is different. I think it's important to kind of get to the root of where the depression may be coming from. So is some of these things like genetic, hereditary, something, a brain chemistry thing going on? Is this an environmental thing? Is it that I'm around so much stuff in my environment that it's creating and causing depression? Or is it just based off of my present situation? Sometimes we just go through a major life transitions, maybe a loss of a loved one or something like that, and it can lead to symptoms of depression. So I think it's important that you get to the root of those things. I think it's important that you change whatever habits are creating some of those symptoms. So a lot of the times I tell my clients, whatever depression tells you to do, work on doing the opposite. If depression is telling me not to get in the shower, it's hard. Force yourself to get in the shower. If depression is telling you to stay in bed until 4 p.m., hey, maybe I'm just going to stay in bed until 2 p.m. and I'm going to slowly keep moving that time up. So really creating a healthy routine when it comes down to that thing. Also, looking at the things that we put into our bodies. Most people don't look at that, but it's so important. The things that we eat can weigh us down, can make us feel bad about ourselves sometimes. And so looking at the things that you eat, those things that maybe don't create, some of that positive energy, right? Sometimes we feel like we have very low energy. And so again, those things that you eat, exercising has been proven to help reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety as well. So don't minimize going to the gym, going for a walk, doing some stretches in your living room, but putting some effort into it. As I always tell people, what you put into your process is what you're going to get out of it. So it's so important that you don't just, put minimal effort effort in, because that's what you're going to get out of it, you know? And even thinking from a biblical standpoint, we always talk about faith without works is dead. And so if we're believing God to help us get out of some of these places, depression, anxiety, we still have to be willing to do the work ourselves as well. He can't do everything. He can do a miracle. He absolutely can, but you have to be willing to put something into your process as well. And so that means opening up ourselves to some of those options of going to counseling. If I do need medication for a short period of time, don't be afraid of those things. So just be open with yourself about your process and what you're willing to put into it to get that something out of it in return. Okay? All right. Any other questions? I see a question back there. We thank God for the youth being in the room. You still have an opportunity to come next Monday. So if you have missed this session and you want to be here, Monday will be a great opportunity for you to submit your questions or come in person for your questions as well.
How do you cast like a positive light on school? Because like sometimes like even though like when I get to school it's okay, sometimes I just don't want to go.
Can you ask that one more time? I'm sorry, sweetie.
Oh, how do you cast a positive light on school, like going to school?
How do you have a positive fight on school?
No, like have like a positive emotion on going towards school. Like,
A positive emotion going towards school.
Like, how do you have a positive outlook on school, like going to it and
I
just...
got you. I got you, baby girl. No, I got you. It's creating those opportunities, thinking about why you're going there for in the first place. I think sometimes it's important, right? Friends are important, but remembering what am I really here for as well. Okay, like knowing that we're here for our academics, but a part of it is learning how to build, again, some of that social connection can be important for creating those positive experiences for school. Also, I always tell kids too, getting involved with your school. If you just go to school and I'm just going to school, I, come home, get my homework, like that doesn't really create much fun experiences at school. So if there's an opportunity to be a part and feel like you're a part of that community, that's why I always say join a club, join a sport or something like that, because it'll give you pride. It'll give you something to look forward to. You'll feel more connected to your school as well. And again, just allowing yourself to get connected even to the adults on campus. I know a lot of times kids, they don't really talk to the teachers outside of the classroom, or they don't really even know that they have other adults on campus to help them. So, there's a lot of people that provide, that support and build those connections. So don't be afraid to build those connections with some of the adults, because that can change your experience as well. So just build connections, build a sense of belonging. And again, sometimes we just got to speak those affirmations. What we speak can really determine a lot for us. So if we already have and we're determined that it's going to be a bad or a terrible day, or I'm not looking forward to this, then most of the time that's how we're going to show up. So we have to be able to speak positivity. We have to be able to put that out there in the atmosphere that today is going to be a great day. For some people, I really have them before they go to bed. I'll have them write down 3 things that they're grateful for, 3 things that they feel like they did well that day, and then 3 things that they're looking forward to tomorrow. And so that just kind of gives us something to look forward to. So set little goals for yourself, set little fun goals for yourself. Like today I'm going to talk to somebody new. Today I'm going to, say hi to a teacher, or today I'm going to go visit a teacher during lunchtime or something. Just set little goals for yourself to make it a more positive experience. So those are just some tips that you can do. Yeah. All right. All right, you all. I appreciate, again, this great, awesome opportunity. Again, if you did miss this session, that's totally fine. We have a lot more questions that were submitted, so I'll definitely make sure I make more time to address those things come next week. But I appreciate the opportunity that you all have allowed me to speak to you all, and I hope something was said that you all were able to get out of this session, and I look forward to being with you all next week as well. Thank you.
Amen. I'm going to ask Lady Jazz to just sit there a moment. So if I say something wrong, you can correct me or put it in a better way. One of the things that First of all, I don't have any young kids going to school anymore, and we didn't have social media. But one of the things that Lady Jazz says that and I'm going to be basically talking to the parents, know your children's friends. Know your children's friends. It seems like in a day like today, it's like, well, I'm infringing on them. Know your children's friends. One of the other things that Lady Jazz touched on, so many things I did wrong, so I don't want everybody to think I did it right. But one of the things I will tell everyone is to, we live in basically an Afro-American society, and we emphasize sports. And I was thinking as a young lady back there asked the question, how do I make my school more popular? It's up to the parents to get then involved in making it better. And what I mean by that is when we have an athlete, we buy them stuff. Oh, you need tennis shoes. Oh, you need this, you need that. And we jump up and yell and yay. And then the student that is not involved in that but is doing academically well is like, oh, we forgot you. But what I always tell people is because we live, this is the part you can correct me, in a monetary society that deals with money, okay? Be as giving to the kid that doesn't play sports as you are to the kid that does play sports. Let them know they're just as important and you appreciate them. And I use the term celebrate them. You know, somebody hit a basket, we run out on the court and we just run a touchdown, we do. But then that person that brings home good grades and on the honor roll, it's like, oh, you did good, now let's go on to the next one. So we have to learn to celebrate success and let them know that we feel that this is worth celebrating. So many times I'm asked, oh, you did so well with your children. First of all, nothing but the goodness of God. Nothing but the goodness of God. But I celebrated education from the beginning. And no matter what you did, you understood education was important to me. It wasn't important to, especially my sons, but it was important to me. And children have a desire to please their parents if they know what their parents want. Now, let me tie this into the word. It says, teach my people to observe all things. In other words, what Lady Jazz was saying, observe your children. Know when behavior changes. Know your children. We think that means in the church. Last, you touched on something that just hit me across the head. She said, and I'm just testifying because we think when we go to church, everything is okay and everything is all right. First of all, the Lord blessed me so beautifully and he saved me in my late 20s. And so my children really didn't know my life before, so they thought Daddy was perfect. So when she said they never knew me when I was cussing folks out, when I was drinking all night long, but we need to let our children know our heirs. Can I put it that way? We really do. And my daughter, we were talking to him and we thought we had excellent communication. And we sent my daughter off to school and she was doing good. And she got pregnant while she was in school. First of all, don't beat your kids up when they make a mistake. That's when they need your love even the more. But we asked her the question, well, my wife asked her, well, why didn't you come to me when you decided to have sex? First of all, what Lady Jazz was saying, she felt that was a barrier she couldn't cross and step over. And then she said something that just floored me, so I try to put everything in a joke. She said, well, Dad, you and Mom never had sex before you got married. I said, wait a minute, baby, can you count? Your brother is this old? You know, but I had to put, because you see, they see us as we are now. And we can help them if we let them know that we weren't perfect back then, and we can talk about it. I'm going to end my part of this, and that's why I asked Lady Jazz to stay up here. One of the things as a parent I found, now that I don't have little kids, you have to really ask yourself the question that is in the movie, and it says, can you handle the truth? Do you really want your kids to talk to you? Because if they really talk to you, they're going to say some things that are going to knock you down. Now, how can you handle that? Because that's all part of behavior. And if you can't handle it, you know what? They're the first ones to know. I can't tell you the truth. And one thing, Lady Jazz, you correct me if I'm wrong, a therapist cannot help you if you don't tell them the truth. And your parents need to know the truth, the good, bad, and ugly. And I'm going to tie it all in here. When you talked about dating, I thought just bringing my kids to church, because that's what I did. They were dating in the church, and I didn't even know it. You know, they were trying to come to church. I thought a good anointed service, and they were coming to get there. Oh. Now, so what I'm saying is this. How would I have handled that? Because all those are emotions. Like my brother, he's a biology major, and he says the chemistry in your body, we call it hormones, they just come alive at some point, and we're saying, don't you come alive? You know, and they come alive. They came alive in me. That's all I'm saying. That's why we come with these lessons. We thank God for our pastor. He allows us to have these various conversations. And I want to do something now, and I did tell both the pastor and Lady Jazz, they have a family. They have small kids, and it's time out of their evenings to come in and do these lessons. So those young people and our parents that are, we'd appreciate it if you would bring them in and allow them to ask questions themselves, their own. But what I'm getting to, I'm going to be asking Lady Jazz to come back later on in a couple of months, where we bring in a group of young people and just sit them down and let them ask her questions and communicate, because our children do have questions. And we need to make those avenues available to them. And I did say it's the last, but I have to bring this out. I always do. When someone says something's wrong with your kid, that's an opportunity for you to go get involved and take care of it, whether it's depression or whatever it may be. And I'll just say it this way. When people come to me and say, you did such a good job with your children, it's because I was not embarrassed of where my children were at that time in their life. We got to notice that, I'm going to put it in Afro-American language, not technical language. Your son is just stupid. He can't learn. That's not building self-esteem. So what we had to do is take him to therapy. We took him, and thank God we had the resources, to Phoenix Children's Hospital. They did medical tests on him. They did therapy tests on him, all the whole 9 yards. Because I'm not embarrassed that he couldn't learn. I want to know, what can we do? But if I don't face the problem and I try to hide the problem and sweep it under the rug, well, he's just as smart as your kid. Well, yours might not be smart. But through that, day by day, Lady Jazz, and people say I'm bragging, and I might be, but I'm trying to testify. That's my doctor today, my PhD doctor that is now on staff at a university. But if we hadn't have got him the help, professional help, not Fred's help, and I know the Lord, we prayed on him and we anointed him with oil, but after that, we took him to get the help. We thank Lady Jazz for this. Did I say anything you need to correct? Okay, all right. We thank God, but most of all, we thank God for you tuning in and taking advantage of this. Your children are your greatest asset. Your children are your greatest asset. And putting the time in them will pay off, not after a while, right now. So once again, our pastor asks us each week, those of you that can and those of you that will, be a blessing to this department by, if you are able to, give a $20 donation. The ways that you can give are on the screen now, and you can take advantage of it. We thank God for that. As I leave you, Lady Jazz will be back next week, and we thank her again. We thank our pastor, our first lady, for making this time available for you. So until this time next week, may God bless you and may God keep you.